Okay, here I'm Rachel. It's in the second day two of the NFSC 2022, and it's in the afternoon. And I just have a lovely lady sitting with me, and I will let her introduce herself. So,
So hi, thanks so much for having me on. My name is Shakira Jackson. I'm a political activist and a political commentator in the United States, and I'm just so happy to be here.
that's awesome. I love your outfit.
Oh well, thank you, darling.
For sure, absolutely. You told me that you have actually a podcast. Do you want to tell us what's your podcast, and so people can find you?
Absolutely. So my podcast name is called Capitol Pink, like the U.S. Capitol building. But a lot of our mission, what we stand for, is specifically on like free markets, capitalism, and really trying to get more students' perspectives on like censorship and bias. But one of the biggest things we're focusing on now is environmental international corruption.
Awesome. So tell us your first impression when you stopped by the booth and read our mission on the wall. What going through your mind?
Sure thing. So I started thinking about Karl Marx and, a lot of the war theory also. I think it's really impactful to see and to think about how it really just took the courage of just a few people or one person kind of saying, well, I had enough and I'm going to do something to make a change. And so I just think that that's really remarkable. And I wish, I had that courage, but I don't know, hopefully in the future I'll have that much courage as well to stand up like the person who, decided to start this organization did.
Thank you. So you grew up in America, right? So how much you know about Chinese Communist Party and communism in general?
Sure thing. So I will say my first exposure to the Chinese culture in general was second grade. I took a Chinese class, and so it was kind of like introduction to culture and things like that. But I've always been a history geek. I actually have my bachelor's from the University of Pittsburgh in history. So I've always been just really really interested in that aspect of it. But yeah, as far as communism and that exposure, I think that came like first year of undergrad. And it's so sad to think about that it took so long for me to get that exposure because you would think that would be something that'll be talked about, in middle school and in high school, so students can learn more perspectives and really start to educate themselves on those issues, early on.
Absolutely. So I told you a lot of story about how the CCP infiltrated, America. So one of the concerning things we've seen more of is the judicial system because they pretty much already bought everything else, right? So they're in the schools, they're in business, they're buying your land, they buying your information, stealing your information and technologies. But now they're also going to your judicial system, which is affecting your justice. So when you heard that, what's your initial reaction?
Honestly, it's very heartbreaking. I'm someone that advocates every single day for world peace and to just be able to live freely. And so when I hear scenarios like that, it kind of almost breaks my heart because I'm all for unity. After all, like I feel like specifically with the U.S., we're called the United States, right? Like we want unity. We want people to be able to think that they can look to us for guidance and support. Do we always get that? I don't know. It's really hard now, especially the times that we're living in. And no country is perfect, but I think that's something that I really look forward to advocating for, and I'm hoping that we see more of it in the future.
So I want to go back to the question I asked you. So if you think, just offhand, okay, so what should the American people do more of when they heard the news that I just shared with you? The CCP has already infiltrated your justice system. So what should American people do more of to fighting that issue?
I think the biggest thing that they can do is exercise their freedom of speech. I mean, after all, America is one of the only countries where you can literally say whatever, do whatever, and, well, maybe not do whatever, but say whatever, and you won't be as penalized for it. I mean, we're experiencing kind of cancel culture now on social media, but that's nothing, right, compared to, certain countries where even from you speaking out about a certain issue, you could be sent to prison, even death. And so I think for me, at least, I think it's just taking that first initiative, being able to go out and be on social media or whatever platform that you use to advocate for these issues. But it also starts in the classroom. Education is the biggest pillar. So I think if we have more teachers even taking initiative, I know they have like a strict curriculum that they have to, stick by, rules and regulations there. But I do think it doesn't hurt even in the morning when your students first come in. You could say, well, hey guys, have you watched the news today? Do you know what's going on in China? Do you know what's going on in across the world? After all, we're not the only people on the planet. And I think once those conversations start to happen, that's what we'll see true change.
Absolutely. So I want to ask you, because you mentioned about social media and media. So in nowadays, because a lot of the mainstream media really do not report events. For example, like we have the movement for over 5 years, but never once the mainstream media positively reporting us because they fear They were fearful. If they do that, they would piss off the Communist Party, who is probably their biggest defender and payer. Okay, so in a day and an age, like we're facing censorship across the board, from mainstream media to social media like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So what are the solutions? How do we get our message across to more people?
Well, I mean, after all, one of the things that I find, even being on a college campus and sometimes experience censorship myself, I think the biggest advocacy is having other people in alliances that kind of support your mission and what you want to do. Really getting out there, doing some in the field work. I think one of the biggest things too about me taking a lot of like campaign trainings and stuff like that, knowing how to like, really kind of door knock and the effectiveness, right, of really being able to have those one-on-one conversations. I also think that's kind of one of the initiatives that, us as Americans and other supporters of just, ending the whole communism jazz as a whole can do to really tackle this issue.
Awesome, thank you. So I wanted to ask you a question. So what's your impression about the new federal state of China?
Well, as a civic engagement activist and someone who really, really believes in just everyone having a voice and being able to exercise it freely, I hope that China develops, and kind of takes a little bit of pointers from the U.S. at least as far as the way our democracy is set up. I mean, after all, like I said, no country is perfect, but at least to the point where, you guys will be able to elect your own leaders and, have the say of who's getting elected into office, because I do think there's power in having those and being able to make those decisions, because after all, we are what make up the government, and it's important for us to have a representation of what we think.
That's what the new federal state of China is wanting to do, is to bring the freedom and the democracy back into the China and get rid of the CCP, so the people deserve to vote and people deserve to live freely. So this is what we are doing. So I wanted to ask you, so you talking to, because the question I didn't make it clear for you, I wanted to ask you, what's your impression about us as a new Chinese, as the new federal state of China and our mission?
Well, I will read the mission, flat out again and emphasize, you guys said that our mission is to take down the evil Chinese Communist Party. And so I am all for this. I think it's really important. I mean, even like a joke about, TikTok and Gen Zers kind of getting on it. And it's like, I sometimes, although I think it's a good way, I guess, to kind of boost your image if you want, looking more into like the logisticals, right? And how like a lot of your data is leaked and all of these types of things that are going into just downloading a simple app on your phone. A lot of people don't read the rules and regulations right before you download an app. And so I think that's also like really, really vital. I'm not one to say like, oh, get on TikTok, but there's some interesting things to unpack there. But I'll leave you with, oftentimes, specifically Gen Zers, thinking about how we can tackle these issues such as communism and, even thinking back to Marxism and all of these ideologies that, are really important element and aspect to understanding theory. I just think it's really important that we advocate and emphasize the mission of this organization, because it's going to take us as a country to support missions like this, organizations like this, so we can finally see change in just a free world.
Absolutely, because we the people, right? It's a grassroots. So thank you so much. I admire the work that you do every day, because you're focusing on education, starting from the young people. So thank you. And thank you for taking this interview. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, Shakira. Thanks.